We've got some water damage in our front room of our house, and we have workers who are in here trying to fix it. So it's kind of noisy. So I'm trying to squeeze a little bit of time here and there when it's quiet to put a couple of videos in here. And today I'm going to give you three more longer series that are relatively inexpensive to collect that I think you can finish. Hey everyone, it's Kevin. Welcome once again to Doc's Comics. I've been doing a few videos scattered here and there of short runs and longer runs that are inexpensive but still fun to collect that I think that you can knock out relatively easily. And I'm going to continue that train of thought today with three more longer series that I think you have a chance to finish because they are not very expensive and they're fairly easy to find. And the first one that I'm going to start off with today is Marvel Fanfare. A little glare here, sorry. Marvel Fanfare is a series that started in March of 1982 and it lasted 60 issues until January of 1992. So it was a bi-monthly title. All of them have nice back cover pinups, so I use the clear backing boards for these. And one nice thing about Marvel Fanfare, well, there's a lot of nice things. It was done on nicer paper, so the quality of the books tend to be higher, and it's a little stiffer as a result, and so it's fairly easier anyway to find these books in pretty high grade. Most of them are one shots, and almost everyone does have a backup story as well, and oftentimes it's the feature story that's on the front cover, and it's the backup story that is on the back cover, usually by a different artist as well. These books tend to be exploring many of them, at least less used characters in the Marvel Universe. So you're not going to see as much Spider Man or Wolverine or Captain America, although they do pop up every once in a while. You'll see lesser characters like the Black Widow, like the Submariner, like Shanna the She Devil, which appears later, right at the end of the series. Much of this series often has pinups by various artists. There's an issue that has like 4 or 5 pinups by P. Craig Russell. There's another one that has pinups by Bob Layden. So those are fun little treats to find in there as well. And a lot of really big artists from the time did work on Marvel Fanfare, including John Byrne, John Buscema, Michael Golden, Gil Kane, Frank Miller, George Perez, P. Craig Russell, as I mentioned before. Paul Smith did a couple of issues. Jim Starlin did a couple as well. And the nice thing about Marvel Fanfare is that the entire series is very, very inexpensive. There isn't even one book that I would call a key. There isn't one book I think you should be able to get for less than, I mean, every book in the series you should be able to get for $10, $20 or less. Even then, there's only a couple that are higher than, say, $10. The rest of them you should be able to find in the discount boxes, and they are pretty common. I mean, issue number one, which one would expect is usually the most expensive, you should be able to find a nice number one, Michael Golden, for $10 or less. And I mean, one of the only issues is that some of the later ones, particularly the last five, so 56, 57, 58, 59, 60. 56 through 59 is a four-issue series, four-part series with Shanna the She-Devil, with some very cool Joe Chiodo covers, and number 60 is a Black Panther, and they just tend to be scarce because the print runs of these were so doggone low. The only other issue that is really any significance is issue number 45, which is an all pinup issue. It has a nice wraparound cover by John Byrne, and then it has a bunch of pinups by A-listers from the mid 1980s. So just about everybody you can think of who was doing a big book at the time has a pinup in that. One thing that I will say about Marvel Fanfare is that it is kind of a hit or miss sort of series. There are some one shots and some of the shorter ones multi-issue stories like this George Perez Black Widow that are really good, and then there's a few issues scattered throughout the series that are kind of stinkers. So if you are a completist, you're going to get some good ones, and you are going to get some bad ones. But it's a fun series nevertheless, and you never know what you're going to get from issue to issue. I'm going to move to DC for the second longer run that you should be able to collect, and that's DC Comics Presents. This one that I have here in my hand, which is number 26, is probably far and away the most expensive, although there's another one that's pretty close. This is the first appearance of the new Teen Titans and the first appearance of Cyborg, of Raven, and of Starfire. Cool thing about DC Comics Presents is that it was essentially a team up book. It was DC's answer to Marvel Team Up and Marvel's 2-in-1 kind of later in the run. Yeah, they had Brave and the Bold, which was a team up series more in the Silver and the Bronze Age. but Superman ends up being the running character throughout the entire series of DC Comics Presents. The first issue came out in July of 1978, and it lasted for 97 issues until September of 1986. Um, they have Superman team ups in all of them. As I said, most of these series, similar to Marvel Team Up and Marvel 2 in 1, are one shot. So you read the issue and you get an entire story, and there are different guests who appear from issue to issue, which keeps it fresh and keeps it fun. And it's an attractive book for younger readers as well because you don't have to deal with so much backstory and so much other stuff that happened in the past. There's a lot of various creative teams from issue to issue, so the quality can be good, the quality can be less good, but you are going to see people like Gil Kane, like George Perez, like Jim Starlin, and even an issues done by Greg Morrow in DC Comics Presents. A lot of cheap books are in this series as well. There's really only two or three that are going to hold any kind of significant value. The first one I told you already is number 26, which is the first new Teen Titans. If you want a really nice copy of this, it could cost you a couple of $100s, but this book fluctuates up and down. The next issue, number 27, is the first appearance of a Superman villain, Mogul, and that one can run you $40 or $50 depending upon the condition. And then the other one that a lot of people want from DC Comics Presents is number 47, which is the first comic book appearance of He-Man, the master from the Masters of the Universe, who teams up with Superman, and that's another book that could run more than $100 depending upon what kind of shape you want. One other one that I'll mention is number 49, which has an early Black Adam and Captain Marvel appearance, and that one is in high demand as well. One other cool thing about DC Comics Presents before I move on to the third title is that there are a lot of Whitman variants in DC Comics Presents. So if you're a chaser of variant covers or Whitman variants or Mark Jewelers or oddities like that, there is a fun little chase with the Whitman variants on DC Comics Presents. The final series that I will talk about, as far as a longer series that is relatively inexpensive, is Volume 1 of What If. Classic Bronze Age stuff. It starts in the Bronze Age. What If starts in February of 1977 with this first issue here. What if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four? And it lasts for 47 issues going until October of 1984. What If is a double-sized series, so every book is going to be larger than the average comic, and of course they carried a larger cover price as a result. They started off at 50 cents, went to 60 cents, 75 cents. I think they were at $1.50 by the end, but you always got more pages with What If, and you probably know a little bit about What If, particularly if you paid attention to the Marvel Cinematic Universe television show, the animated show, which is based on these, and What If gets into hypothetical situations. What would have happened if this happened instead of what did happen in the Marvel canon? And so it can create a bunch of fun little what ifs, if you'll pardon the pun, scenarios of things that gives the creators a lot of creative freedom to decide to do some fun things with a storyline, assuming that it might have changed. So a lot of alternate realities going on here of major acts in the Marvel universe. Many of the early ones, as I said, are square bound, although they do go to a standard saddle stitch about halfway through the run. So it's not the square bound, it's just a thicker book with the standard staples that you would see. And just like the other titles that I've mentioned, there's a lot of big names that do stories in What If. We've got John Buscema again, John Byrne, Gene Colan, Gil Kane, Bob Layton, Jack Kirby does an issue or two, Frank Miller does an issue or two. Then we have Walt Simonson, Jim Starlin, just to name a few. Again, a lot of the big names from the 70s and the 80s in the Marvel universe do issues in What If. Most of these books are cheap and affordable and relatively available. You should be able to find a lot of these just in the standard What If section of the back issues, or even in the cheaper ones. You should be able to get a lot of these for under $5 each. There's only a few that are worth mentioning. Again, number one, the price on this book has dropped considerably. You can get a really sharp copy of number one for probably $50 these days. The other big issue of What If that people like is issue number 10, which is the Jane Foster Thor issue. That book really skyrocketed when Jane Foster appeared in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and when she took the hammer herself, but it has dropped precipitously since then, and you can get a very sharp copy of that for probably $80. Again, as I say in every video, if high grade isn't your thing, if you're looking for a mid grade or even a low grade copy, you should be able to get it even considerably cheaper than that. And then then really the only other issue worth mentioning as far as being a key that a lot of people seek out because of it is number 31, which is a Wolverine and Hulk appearance, which a lot of people want as well. Similar to Marvel Fanfare, some of the later issues do tend to be harder to find just because there are fewer out there. The print runs were smaller, and if you can find them, you're in for a treat because for the last 5 or 4 of the last 6 issues are very cool covers that are done by Bill Sienkiewicz, so it's definitely worth the hunt to try to get them. But altogether, all three of these titles, What If, DC Comics Presents, and Marvel Fanfare, are inexpensive. They're more than 10 or 15 issues, so it's going to take you a little bit of work to get them, but I think all of them can be gettable. So that's a quick one. Who knows when the construction noise is going to start up again, so I tried to squeeze this in as quickly as possible. As always, I ask, give me a like, give me a subscribe, leave a comment. Uh, let me know what you think about these books. There's been a lot of really great comments on all of the videos that I've been posting. I really do appreciate y'all's participation. It makes it a lot more fun for me to make these videos. So anyway, I will see you on the next video. Y'all take care of yourselves.